my name is Jenny Lauren Dowden for Conduit News, and today we have Senator Charles Beckham joining us. As many of you know, he is a senator for District 12, and that district is now changing the beginning of the year to District 3. Hi, thanks for joining us.
Hey, great. Hey, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be on.
Yeah, I don't know if we have done an interview in the past year or so. I don't think you've been on Conduit in a while.
No, we've tried to, and our schedules just never could line up where I could make it. Running a business, young family, and running the roads with the legislature, it eats up most of my time, and hadn't had a lot of opportunity to join y'all.
Well, I'm sure our viewers will also understand that, but we're glad that you're here today. Tough primary loss in May. Talk to us. We're going to miss you, by the way, in the legislature big time. And I know that the majority of our viewers feel that way too. Talk to us about your time since then. You've mentioned you've been working, your kids. Catch us up with what's been going on.
Yeah, so it was a tough loss in May. Just a couple hundred votes out of a 7-county district, so that was pretty tough. Since May, my wife and I have been busy with our full-time job, which is a propane company. Simple as that. We started this back in 2020. We've expanded rapidly. This year, we've actually opened up an office. We had to completely gut this building all the way down to the exterior walls and rebuild it from there, and get trucks ready, get our licensing, get insurance, all the government red tape that you have to go through in order to open up a business. We've been going through that. And also just spending time with my kids, taking them on vacation when we can, and going through the perpetual, it seems like, never-ending sessions and never-ending meetings with the legislature.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you about that. Right now, committee hearings and meetings are happening. You were recently, you sit on the Education Committee for the Senate. You all recently had a meeting. Talk to us about what is going on. Many people don't really think about you all being there right now, but there's still a lot of moving pieces, a lot of things happening. Tell us what's been going on.
Yeah, so that's one thing that I've told a lot of my constituents. I think I've had conversations with y'all as well regarding the ALC, the budget hearings, all the meetings that happen outside of session. That's where a lot of money gets spent, a lot of policies get decided, and that's the things that are very important to the day-to-day lives of Arkansans. Recently, we've been working in education on adequacy, which is a study that we do every 2 years to determine the adequate funding for school districts in the state of Arkansas. And this funding goes back to a per student basis, and it's a very complex formula. It has a lot of moving parts in it. So, I mean, if you want me to expand a little bit on that, that gets some pretty interesting data that we mined during that process. So it was actually a meeting yesterday where we finally had the report, and I added it to the Senate's recommendations, which is, we fund, we give money to school districts, and we say these are the buckets that we think the money should be spent in. Mm-hmm. But you don't have to spend it there. You can spend it however within reason. There's some money that's specifically for certain items, but overall they have a lot of autonomy on how to spend their money. So I asked for a report back in, I think it was April, and I've finally got my hands on it here in the last few days, and we included in the report, which was how do the top performing school districts in the state spend their money versus the bottom 5% performing school districts in the state spend their money. And that's a pretty interesting report. It shows that just on the surface level, without digging down deep into it, that early childhood education, which is the pre-K, the kindergarten, that type of education isn't as important or as well funded in the lower performing schools as athletics. I think just a brief overview, the bottom 5% schools spend 3 times as much per pupil, according to the report we have, on athletic directors as they do on kindergarten programs. which is
Help us understand that. So why do you think that is? I think that a lot of people would be shocked to see that number.
we just got the report the last few days, so we haven't had a chance to really dig deep into it
Yeah.
and find out. But why do I think that is? I think that's because field houses and weight rooms and football coaches, basketball coaches, baseball coaches, they've become more important than the average teacher. It's something that's been very interesting to me since we've been talking about teacher pay raises. It's been a huge push. We have a minimum salary set in the in code for what teachers can be paid. We don't have that for football coaches or basketball coaches or baseball coaches. And we don't hear a lot of complaints from those guys or women asking about pay raises for athletics. We always seem to be able to find the money or pass the millage rate
That's
to
right.
pay for whatever we need when it comes to that.
Yeah. So teacher raises were mentioned in the education committee meeting this week. What are your thoughts on that and how it played out?
Well, one of the things that I'm happy to see on it, Senator Sturch actually worked on it pretty intensely here recently, is to have a merit pay raise tied to that. I'll have to go back and dig the specifics up on that, but it's not just a blanket, everybody gets a raise. We're not doing one of the famous talk shows where everybody gets a prize. It is merit based, and that's hugely important because 30% of the report we heard earlier in the year is 30% of students in the state can read on grade level. In our industry, even in the propane company that I work, that my wife and I own, if a driver makes 30% of their deliveries, they won't work here anymore.
Yeah.
It's very, very easy. If you perform 3 out of 10 of the tasks that you're charged to do,
Yeah.
we need to start taking a look at it. And the teacher unions and things like that have protected these individuals for so long that what we're producing, the students are showing that effect.
Yeah, we have seen recent reports, ACT scores down, reading proficiency down, math proficiency down, everything is down, especially since COVID. I read an article just this morning and it said, I believe it was from the Heritage Foundation or Washington Post, and it said Republicans nor Democrats nor independents are the ones really in charge of education freedom. Parents are the ones driving that. And I think that's true. I think that we'll see this in November and going into the legislative session. But one thing that's still very interesting to me is that we have Arkansas legislators still pushing back on universal school choice, on offering parents the option to send their child to the best school district that meets their child's needs. Why do you think that this is still such an issue, particularly here in Arkansas? And what are you hearing anything from school officials?
Yeah, so it's interesting. If you have a, and I'll say the word bad superintendent, they're going to fight it. They're going to fight it tooth and nail. If you have a good superintendent, they're going to support it with the caveat, and I've been quoted saying this in the paper, that the restrictions are lifted. What I mean by that is that we have to give the educators the ability to educate kids and stop legislating the work that the school districts, the school board should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we're losing it at is the school boards should be making more local decisions on how a school district's being ran. They should be doing that hand in hand with the superintendent. I have some of the best superintendents in my Senate district in this state. And I know that if we start rolling back some of the restrictions, the things that have tied their hands, if we start rolling some of that back and allow them to educate, just focus on that, having children that come out at 12th grade and are able to become productive members of society, are able to balance checkbooks, are able to know what a checkbook is. If we go back to that and stop worrying about making sure that we have 35 tests during the year and that they make the right number on all those tests, then they'll be supportive over it. If you have a superintendent that just wants to cash that $10,000, $15,000 a month check or more, and have their retirement and all that, they obviously want to fight it because they're accustomed to being the management level of a socialized system, which is what education is, what public education basically is. It's everyone paying, everyone contributing to educate these kids, but we're not having any accountability in the ones performing the work, and that's what we have to do. The legislators that are opposed to it, I think, at least in the 93rd in the Senate, I believe it would have passed. I believe that we could have passed that. We couldn't get it out of the House. We tried hard to get it out of the House, but we're just a few votes short of passing universal school choice. I'm 100% supportive over it. Again, with the caveat that we sit down with the superintendents and say, what do you need us to take out of code so that you can be competitive? And I think we should be doing that anyway, but I haven't had anything sent to me from superintendents saying, we need these lines struck, we need these requirements pulled out so that we can be competitive.
Talk to us about the importance of committees, specifically the education committee. You were on that, but in years past, in previous sessions, that has not been a committee that conservatives have fought to get on. They've chosen other ones. Now is the time. Go ahead.
If you're out door knocking, you're out talking to people, you quickly realize where we are in education, as a whole, not just in specific areas, but as a whole. I have 6 counties currently. We're moving to a 7-county district. You go out there and start knocking on doors and talking to individuals. I have friends of mine that are 10 years younger than me as well, and very few of them know what we do as legislators, and that's concerning to me. I don't know. When I was growing up, when I was going through school, high school, middle school and high school, it was interesting to me of how the country was founded, how the Federalist Papers were very interesting to me. That situation, that time frame, to try to put yourself in that time, and go back and read the Federalist Papers to see what they were trying to accomplish when they wrote the Constitution, wrote the Declaration of Independence. That's pretty interesting. So I don't know if we're missing that in school. I don't know how we're missing that in school, how we're not creating that spark that has people going home and wanting to research that. Because when I was coming through school, information wasn't quite as accessible as it is now. You can pull out your phone right now and pull up the Federalist Papers if you want to. You can pull up the U.S. Constitution. You can pull out a wealth of information. We have so much stuff available to us at the tips of our fingers, but it seems that we're not, we've lost our history. We've lost what government does, why it's important. We've just kind of glossed over that. One of the big fights I had in education, this is a funny story. I'm not even sure if you realize that I did this, but I ran a bill to require financial education for college freshmen.
No. Wait, yes, I did. Yes, I saw that. Yes.
So
because
that was
getting
a fun.
it.
Yeah, that was a fun bill because I hate talking to kids they're talking about student loan forgiveness, a big hot topic nationally right now.
Yes.
But you shouldn't go into debt for $150,000 for a job that pays less than you can make going to McDonald's and working, or wherever, not just McDonald's. There's nothing wrong with working there. There's nothing wrong working any job, but there's no reason to get hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loan debt if you can go into a trade, or you can go. You have to understand that you have to pay it back. You have to pay it back with interest, and they will collect the interest.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that are probably lacking and missing in secondary education in schools right now that you and I had, and those were required courses to take. And now, if you ask a student, have you taken a finance class? Or, they're like, what? No, why would I need that? Yeah, there's so much that needs to be brought back into our schools, history, the importance of the Declaration of Independence. Why, why was our country founded? You're right. These things seem to be lost and not a focus anymore in our schools, rather than now the focus seems to be in a lot of schools, just social engineering and, making sure that these kids think a particular way rather than teaching them how to think critically about everything. There's a lot of work
Absolutely.
that needs to be done.
Absolutely. And that's one of the, I guess that's one of the things that I'm hopeful gets carried on without me being there. So one of the things I wish I would have accomplished is more progress in education reform. Not to go and teach kids whether they should be on the right or on the left or in the middle, or but just read what's in front of you and make your own decision.
Right.
And stop the influence. We one thing that I was really excited to see, probably the most exciting thing that happened while I was in the legislature, is Henderson State cutting the classes and doing the reforms they did to try to get back to their roots, which was a school that served people within 50-mile to 100-mile radius of that school. That's what's going to keep them out of the red. And I expect really bright things for that campus in the future.
Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
You asked about the committee process. Why committees are important. I was on several committees, but the two main committees I was on was education and agriculture. And the agriculture committee was huge. It's one that at least slowed down the license fee increases for Arkansas Game and Fish.
Yeah.
I expect to see that circle back here this session, maybe next session, take another run at it. We need to have government agencies that are accountable for the money that they spend, whether they be constitutionally separate from the legislature or whether they're under the legislature or under the executive branch. They have to be. It's all taxpayer money. None of this money is free money. It's all coming out of our pockets, and we have to hold them accountable. That's the reason it's so important to have committees and have people that are interested in the topics that the committees cover. If you're on a committee and you have no rev and tax, it's a relatively boring committee. It's crunching numbers. But if you have that CPA mindset, or budget's another one. Jonathan Dismang's Senator Dismang is a great guy when it comes to running the budget. He did a phenomenal job this year in budget. But the personality has to fit the committee, and you have to have the desire to dig deep into the bills, understand the bills in order to pass good bills and pass good legislation.
Well, hopefully we will get those legislators on there. I want to switch gears just a little bit. Sarah Huckabee Sanders recently released her education report, her plan. Not a lot of meat on the bones, but it's out there now. So I think it's safe to say that she will be our next governor. What do you think that will look like? Are we going to have ASA 2.0? Do you think that she will be like these other conservative governors that we're seeing across the country step up and push universal school choice, like Doug Ducey in Arizona or DeSantis? What do you think? What do you think her leadership will look like?
I'm hopeful for Sarah to come in as the next governor and really show us conservative leadership. She has a golden opportunity with one of the most conservative legislatures that's Arkansas has ever had to pass some really great bills, really great reforms. Education's a huge one. Universal school choice would be a great step. It would be something kind of carrying on her father's legacy of school reform in the state of Arkansas. So it would be a great step. I think that the concern that I have with the legislature is not with Sarah, not with the governor. It's with the we kind of briefly touched on this several days ago. We had a conversation, but we're not changing out those that run the agencies. We're changing out a lot of secretaries. Most likely will change, the cabinet secretaries, and those cabinet secretaries will be asked to get certain things done in legislation or in code, or certain grants or certain type of funding done. And they'll be asked by the people that have been there for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, however long they've been in the government.
Yeah.
And the secretaries will have very little knowledge in some cases of the history, why that hasn't been done. But when they come to a young legislature, which will have 30%, 40% turnover in the House.
Yeah.
And very similar turnover in the Senate. When they come to the legislature and ask for these things, it's going to be interesting to see which ones push back and say, look, we can't afford this. We can't do this. This isn't good policy, whatever it may be. A prime example is with the teacher pay that we had talked about, the proposal that the House passed. One of the reasons the Senate circled back with a different proposal is the House's proposal put the state in the red by 2025. So it looks good on paper. It's great that they're asking for it, but if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. We can't pass legislation that hamstrings future governors, future legislators without a way of paying for it. We can't just say, well, they'll figure it out by then.
Right. I think that a lot of Arkansans probably saw exactly what you're talking about. During COVID, agencies were coming in practically every committee meeting, wanting a piece of legislation to go through. And particularly in that season with COVID and the restrictions, that was really frustrating, I think, for a lot of Arkansans. And you worked on a piece of legislation regarding mask mandates. It did not pass. Recently, the CDC is saying, you know what, we may actually require the COVID jab for students in public schools. It seems like this is never ending. And so my question would be, if you're going to have that component with the agencies, you have these new legislators coming in. Do you see there being enough support for pushback against some of these things that are just inherently wrong? Are there going to be legislators who are going to be able to stand up, regardless of, say, what Sarah wants or anyone else, and say, this is what needs to happen. This is what's best for our voters. This is what they're asking for. Do you think that we'll have that possibility next year in our session?
Yes, I do. We still have a core group of conservative legislators that are staying, that and some of the ones that are switching from, moving from the House to the Senate, very conservative people, very conservative legislators, and some of the ones coming in. I don't think we're necessarily going backwards on conservatism in the legislature. I would hope that they remember that part of conservatism is physical conservatism, and let's start trying to reduce the size of government. That's one of the huge things, is we have to cap it. We have to give people their freedoms. We have to give them the, if you want to take the vaccine, take the vaccine. If you don't want to take the vaccine, don't take it. That was kind of, Gary Stubblefield ran a bill back in towards the end of session last year, Senate Bill 298, the state sovereignty bill, and we had another one that ran right behind it. I think it was House Bill 1570, I believe. I'm just pulling that out of the air here, but that's the kind of things that we need to keep pushing on. Every year for the past 15 years, we've been pushing pro-life bills. The Supreme Court finally said, hey, Arkansas can make the decision themselves, which is funny because when I read the 10th Amendment, that's what it tells me already. But anyway, we need to start pushing bills that say we are our own state. And if you read the 10th Amendment, we're going to kind of hold you to that, federal government. Stop putting strings attached to the money that comes down, and let us run our state the way we want. The reality is that Florida and California will never agree on policy, right? If you look at it from the federal level, they'll never agree on policy, and it's always going to be a 51% eats the other 49% at the federal level. Until the federal government backs off and lets the states run themselves, let California be far left crazy, let Arkansas, let Florida, let Texas be right. Just leave us alone. Let us run our states. Let us run our business. Same in the personal life. Same with the vaccines. The state needs to stay out of it. The federal government needs to stay out of it.
Absolutely.
It's insane that we're even having the conversation that we have to pass a law to say you cannot inject me with something.
Yes, it is. And considering all of the science and research that has now come out, what we knew then, but they're saying it out loud now, the fact that they're even still talking about mandating this shot is just, it feels sometimes like I'm in the twilight zone.
Right.
A lot of grassroots organizations worked really hard to have an independent legislature. That didn't really happen whenever Asa was in office. We kind of saw a melding of legislators wanting to kind of wait to see what Asa would want or put on the call and not work independently. Do you think that, what do you think that this new legislature will look like? Do you think that they'll be able to operate independently apart from the governor's office? Or do you think that they may be working off of what Sarah wants and recommends?
I think there's going to be a little of both. I mean, I think that Sarah is going to have a tremendous amount of leeway with the legislature. She has, she has got, a lot of people discount the amount of experience she has in politics. She has been involved in this since she was my kid's age. I mean, I have young kids. She's been involved in politics forever. Most of her life, right? And the people, the connections that she has, the conservative connections she has, carries a lot of weight. And I believe that she will get a majority of the things that she wants, not because the legislature is subservient, but because they'll be good for Arkansas. That's what my hopes are. That's what my beliefs are. If she starts, if for some reason she decides that she wants to push a policy that's not conservative, I believe that the legislature will push back. You're starting to see the shift in the body of people that want to create to have a paycheck or to have the power or in it for the wrong reasons, to people that are tired of people being in the legislature for the wrong reasons, running against those. I originally ran not because I wanted to be a senator, not because I wanted to be in office, it's because I didn't think that someone that represented me should be voting against overriding the veto for a pro-life bill.
Yeah.
So that's the reason I originally ran. That's the reason I believe that I won, is because I don't have an agenda of staying there until I retire. I don't think that a majority of the people there want to stay there until they retire, especially the new people coming in. Mm-hmm. They're wanting to create a better Arkansas for the future. And I think that they will fight the governor if they need to. But the legislature, you've watched Senate committee, you've watched the Senate floor. We were pretty independent in the 93rd. I mean, you never knew what was going to happen.
It was fun to watch. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, should have been there on the floor. That was interesting too.
I bet. Well, okay,
that's one of the things that was interesting to learn coming in is when I took office, there was no orientation. There's none of that. It was here's your keys. Here's your pick your committee.
Yeah.
Here's your key card. They're going through a lot more formal process of, I guess, onboarding new legislators this year, especially on the Senate end. The House has done a lot better job historically of orientation, but it's where do you go for certain things? Who do you ask for to get this information? That's the stuff that takes so long to learn. And
Yeah.
when you beat an incumbent, especially an incumbent that had all kinds of deals tied up on both sides of the aisle, a lot of people won't even talk to you. And that was the case when I took office. Leadership looked at me as an outsider, and I guess to some degree I was, because I didn't. There was never a plan. It was you tell me what your bill is, you tell me what the thought behind your bill is, and if I can go along with that, I'll vote for it. But if I can't, I can't. There's no trades. I was sent there to represent the 87,000 that I represent, not to make a deal for, a new baseball park in my district.
Yeah. Gosh, we're going to miss you. Okay. So tell us then, what are your plans now? Do you intend to stay involved in some way? Would you perhaps ever run again? What are your plans?
Yeah. So, I mean, whether I'll run again or not, I can't tell you right now. I'll tell you, it's taxing. It's taxing on the family. It's taxing on the individual to be in Little Rock for the amount of time we were.
Yeah.
There's this misnomer that's a part-time legislator that we get $45,000 a year plus per diem. It doesn't even come close to covering the expenses, because you're not expected to. The expectation isn't to attend every committee meeting. The expectation is to attend every committee meeting, every event, every dinner, everything that goes on in 7 counties and also the legislature. So if policy-wise I have to come back, I have to run again, then I absolutely will. There were several of us in the Senate that were not there because we wanted to be there. What I mean by that is we would much rather have someone else go up there and vote for us.
Right.
Not for us, but go up there and represent the constituents that we represent.
Yeah.
But the guy that beat me in the primary, if he votes conservative, he can stay there as long as he wants to, but and not have a challenge for me. But if he doesn't vote conservatively, if he doesn't legislate conservatively, 2 or 4 years, you might see my name on a ballot, depending on what he draws.
All right. Yeah.
My wife and I are very active in the Republican Party. She's a chairman of a committee, and we'll stay involved.
Good. Okay. Last question. Advice we've talked about it. There's going to be a lot of legislators coming in new. What advice would you give them?
There's not a person in that building that's your friend, nor will they ever be. The day that representative or senator falls off your title, you basically are no longer exist to them. Do not become. Do not get so to the point that you believe that you're helping a friend out in Little Rock, because your job is to represent your people. So that's the main thing. Never lose that the people back home are the ones that are important, not the ones in the marble halls. And the other piece of advice that I can give to them, it was I can't remember who told me when I very first took office, but it was it's a weird saying, kind of odd saying. The Capitol, God walks the halls of the Capitol, but there's a devil behind every pillar. Always remember that, because there's always someone tugging at you to try to get you to change course, to change your vote, to change what you believe in, to help them out. So that's the advice I'd give.
We thank you for all of the work that you did. You were such a stalwart there at the Capitol, and we're glad that you're not going anywhere. Thank you for joining us on Conduit, and I hope that you come back again soon. I'm sure that we could just choose topics left and right and just have you come on and talk about them. And voters, Arkansans, will really appreciate your insight.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, as our business slows down, coming, I guess about the time session will start next year.
Hey.
I'd love to be on again.
Good timing. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.